topic, the living world. The very first thing that we have to understand here is what is living. To call any substance or any entity as living, it must be having the defining properties of living as well as the characteristic properties of the living. When we say the defining properties, we mean the properties must be present in all living organisms. And the second prerequisite is these defining properties may or may not be present in the non-living. When we say it should be present in all living organisms, what do we mean? It must be present in all eukaryotic organisms, like we have animals, plants, fungi and protists, plus all the prokaryotic organisms like the organism belonging to kingdom Monera, that is bacteria. In comparison, the characteristic properties are those which must only be present in the living as well as the non-living. Now let's see the type of questions that are important for this particular topic. First question is, which of the following are considered as the defining properties of the living? First of all, we have growth. So let us understand what growth actually is. When we tend to define growth, we can define it in two terms. It could be increase in number of individuals, or it could also be defined as increase in mass. These two together are termed as the twin characteristic of growth. If you look at these two features very carefully, you will find that increase in number of individuals takes place in living as well as non-living. Same with the increase in mass. Now let's say when we focus on living, number of individuals in case of unicellulars, these are cells which themselves refer to the complete organism. And when we talk about multicellulars, that time by increase in the number of individuals we mean cells in the body of a multicellular organism. And if these cells multiply, they will of course result in increase in mass in totality. In case of unicellular, this is analogous to the increase in mass of the entire population, and for multicellulars it is the mass of one's body. Then if we focus on the non-living, the number of individuals, let's say here I have a heap of sand with some sand granules. After some time, if more sand granules are added to it, the size of the heap will increase. Each sand granule here is an individual. Therefore, the number of individual is increasing, which is resulting in the increase in the overall mass. So, for unicellulars or multicellular, that is basically for living organisms, growth is basically intrinsic, that is it occurs from inside the body, which is also known as intussusception. But for the non-living organisms, the growth is from the deposition of materials external to the surface. Hence, such kind of growth is known as accretion. For living organisms, intussusception could be further divided into two categories, that is protoplasmic growth and apoplasmic growth. By protoplasmic growth, we mean increase in the amount of protoplasm, and by apoplasmic growth, we mean increase in the amount of certain material due to deposition onto the surface. Like for example, we have the growth of hair, the nails, bones, teeth, etc. And when we come to protoplasmic growth, it simply means the growth of any organ or organism or a tissue. Other important points about growth that we have to keep in mind is duration of growth. It takes place throughout the life in case of plant, because plants have meristematic zones in them. These meristematic zones contains meristematic cells that have the capacity of unlimited division. But what about in the case of animals? For animals, growth occurs up to a certain age, that is usually before attaining reproductive maturity, and after that cell division does take place, but only to replace the lost cells that are lost due to some injury. So this was all about growth. Now the question is whether this growth is a characteristic feature or a defining feature. First of all, you see it is occurring in both living and non-living. Hence, it cannot be a defining. Rather, it is a characteristic feature. And even if we consider living, if we take the example of unicellular organisms once again, their one cell results in the formation of two daughter cells. We can argue that this particular process is growth because the overall population is growing, and that is how we measure the growth of bacterial cells or any other unicellular organisms. But we can also argue that this particular process is reproduction because progenies are being formed from parents. Hence, for unicellulars, we cannot clearly distinguish this process as growth or reproduction. Therefore, we say here growth and reproduction for unicellulars are synonymous process. Hence, undoubtedly, growth here is a characteristic property unless the conditions where growth is taking place is not properly defined. If we say the growth of if we mark growth as protoplasmic growth, we can say it is a defining feature because protoplasmic growth does not take place in non-living. Hence, it is satisfying our criteria. But simply if we say growth, we have to include it in characteristic properties. Therefore, here option 1 cannot be correct. The next topic here is reproduction. So, let us understand what this reproduction means. So, reproduction means production of progeny from parent. In living organism, this of course occurs. In non-living organism, this is absent. Now, if we classify living organisms as multicellulars, of course it occurs in them because multicellulars have specialized organs for reproduction. But unicellular organisms, they reproduce by cell division. This is also a form of growth as just discussed. Therefore, we can say that reproduction is absent in unicellular organisms if we consider the cell division as growth. Therefore, reproduction is not present in all the living organisms. Here is the exception. The other exception is there are certain multicellular organisms which are sterile, like for example sterile mules, sterile worker bees or sterile humans. Hence, reproduction as it is not present in all the living organisms, we can safely term this as the characteristic property. Hence, option 2 cannot be the answer. Now, we are only left with metabolism. By metabolism, we mean the sum total of all the chemical reactions taking place in our body. It occurs in the living, in all the multicellulars, as well as in all the unicellulars. But what about the non-living? Of course, non-living organism does not show metabolism. But here if I take a test tube, it is of course a non-living object. Thereafter, if I put a solution that has similar composition and viscosity identical to the cellular cytoplasm, and if I put here template DNA along with all the materials required for replication, after some times we will notice that a daughter DNA will be formed. Hence, replication is occurring but inside a non-living object. Hence, we can safely say that metabolism in vitro is possible, but we cannot consider the test tube as a living thing. But it is of course a living reaction because all the enzymes and substrates and all the entities used are from living organisms, and this particular reaction is a reaction that is analogous to that occurring in the living organisms. But the entire setup is non-living, hence this is never a living thing. So what were the criteria for marking any property as a defining property? It must be present in all the living organisms. We can see it is present. It must be absent from non-living. Hence, very safely we can say that here our answer is metabolism. Now let us have a look at the other properties and the other type of question that can come from this particular segment. Select the odd ones out from the following. First of all, we have cellular organization. By this, what do we mean? the ability to organize everything in a proper manner. Because we see in our cells, we have various compartments. Those are membrane enclosed, like mitochondria, chloroplast and other organelles. And even in the eukaryotic cell, everything is spread out in the cytoplasm, but in an organized manner, resulting in the formation of cell. This is known as cellular organization. Of course, it is present in each and every living, and it is not present in the non-living. Hence, cellular organization is a defining property. Self-replication, this is the ability to duplicate itself. This is present in all living organisms. That is the reason they can reproduce and survive, and it is of course absent in non-living organisms. Hence, this is also a defining feature. If we talk about evolution, it is also present in all sorts of living and absent in all sorts of non-living. Hence, this is also a defining feature. Self-regulation, that is, you can say osmoregulation or thermoregulation, that is maintaining homeostasis, again present in non-living, absent from all the non-living. Hence again this is a defining feature. Consciousness, this means the ability to sense or respond to any external stimuli or environmental cues. This is exclusive property of the living and not present in the non-living. And reproduction, as we have seen, this is the characteristic property. Hence here safely our answer is reproduction is the odd one, because all other are the defining property. Hence option number 1. The thing that you have to keep in mind is this is consciousness. If we talk about self-consciousness, it means to be conscious about one's own self. This is a property that is exclusive to human beings and not present in any other animals. Hence, this will be a characteristic property because it is absent from all the non-living organisms and also most of the living organisms except human beings. Here we have certain important questions that are very important for this particular year. Growth continues up to death in. We have already discussed this happens in case of plants. The main difference between the living and the non-living is in size. Well, no. Movement and growth. We have seen both of them grows and its movement. So, we can displace living organisms. So, this is also not an appropriate option. Presence of protoplasm. This feature is exclusive to the living. Hence, this is our option. Growth is synthesis of new protoplasm. Very true. This type of growth, as discussed, is known as protoplasmic growth. Increases mass, one of the characteristic of twin characters of growth. Increase in size is also there. It could be of two types, that is accretion and interception, as discussed. Hence, the answer is all of the above. The reason for the diversity of living beings is mutation are the sudden change which could be inheritable as well as non-inheritable. If it's inheritable, it could lead to diversity, but the non-inheritable form cannot, hence this cannot be our answer. Long-term evolutionary changes. Well, absolutely, because mutation, that is inheritable mutation on accumulation, leads to evolution and it takes a long time. Hence, long-term evolutionary changes. Gradual change, but this change does not define what we actually mean, so this cannot be our answer. Short-term evolutionary changes, again not possible, hence our answer is option number 2. The second topic of this chapter is diversity in the living world. By the term diversity, we mean the different varieties that are present, and when these different varieties are regarding the organisms on earth, we term this as the biodiversity. Here is a question. The number of species that are known and described on earth range between. The answer is 1.7 to 1.8 million. Now, to understand this wide range of biodiversity, we have certain standard scientific methods for these, known as they are identification, nomenclature and classification. These collectively are known as taxonomy. When we say identification, it is the act of scientifically describing an organism. After identification, there is a second step which is known as nomenclature. The term nomenclature basically means the process of naming. In biology, we follow binomial nomenclature which was given by Carolus Linnaeus. He gave certain rules. Now, let's check out a question. Which of the following is incorrect about binomial nomenclature? Biological names are generally written in Latin and in italics. They are Latinized or derived from Latin irrespective of their origin. This is absolutely true. The first word in a biological name represents a genus, very true, while the second component denotes the specific epithet, again true. Both the words in a biological name, when handwritten, are separately underlined, absolutely, and when printed, they were printed in italics to indicate their Latin origin, just discussed. The first word denoting the genus always starts with the capital letter, while the word that denotes the specific epithet, it starts with a small letter. Like for example, we have Mangifera indica, but this is not italicized, hence this is incorrect. So the only one that is incorrect here is option number 4. Now let's go back to the previous topic. So we understood the names. Now is classification. By classification we mean scientifically arranging the organisms. By classification we mean arrangement into categories on the basis of some observable characters. Now these categories are scientifically known as taxa. There are 7 obligate categories or 7 obligate taxas, which are as follows. See, here are all the 7 taxas, that is kingdom. Phylum is said in the case of plants, and division is for animals. Then we have class, order, family, genus and species. As we move from kingdom to species, the diversity decreases because species are the basic unit of classification. It groups the most closely related organisms. Thereafter we have genus, which contains various species in it. Similarly, family, order and class. Now hence as we move up, the diversity among the organism increases. The number of common characters increases as we move down from kingdom to species, and from species to kingdom, the number of common characteristics decreases. The key point that you need to keep in mind here is these rules of binomial nomenclature are now governed by 2 very popular bodies, that are ICBN and ICZN. ICBN stands for International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, whereas ICZN stands for International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. Here are some questions already discussed. ICBN, it stands for International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. We here have to match the following and choose the correct options. Solanum is the genus, Tuberosum is the species. Here we have the matched column. Now let's see which option matches here. That is option number 1. A taxonomic category refers to basic unit of classification. We have already mentioned this is species. A rank or level in a taxonomic hierarchy, very true. A group of related organisms able to interbreed, this also is. You have to know there is a scientist known as John Ray who gave this definition of species. A group of related organisms unable to interbreed freely. This is anything other than species, that is family, genus, order, this could be anything. Hence our answer is option number 2. What is correct regarding the binomial nomenclature? The first name is of genus, the second name is of species. It was developed by Carolus Linnaeus, hence none. Here again we have to match. We have just now discussed, John Ray described the species as the unit of classification. Carolus Linnaeus introduced the concept of binomial nomenclature. Aristotle is the father of zoology, and Julian Huxley gave the concept of new systematics. Hence the correct option here is option number 4. The last topic of this chapter is the taxonomical aids. Taxonomical aids are certain help that help us to classify organisms properly in the taxonomical hierarchy. They include herbarium, which is a booklet consisting specimen of triad plants, botanical garden, which have plants stored in it. We have museum. The thing that you need to remember about museum is it does not contain photographs. Then we have zoological park, and there are many publications like for example Key, which is analytical in nature and helps us to compare between the characteristics of the organisms. Then we have Flora, which contains index of a particular fauna or flora of that particular area, hence it is flora. The animal equivalent is fauna for this. Then we have manuals, monographs, which contain information about one particular taxa, and thereafter we have catalogs. Here are some questions. Botanical gardens mainly serve the purpose of providing beautification for recreation. This is true, but this is not the main purpose. Reservoir for tropical plants, well, it have it, but then again this is not the main purpose. The main purpose is the preservation of germplasm, because rare plants may go extinct. So to prevent that, we have preservation of germplasm, and it cannot be a natural habitat for wildlife. Key is a taxonomical aid used for the identification of organism. We have to understand that each statement in a key is called a lead, that is option number 2, and two contrasting leads, that is two contrasting statements, they form a couplet. Dash is a taxonomical aid which contains actual account of the habitat and distribution of plants in the given area, providing the index of the plant species as just discussed. It's the flora, which is not applicable to zoological park. In vivo, it means inside the body. This is of course not true. Wild animals are kept under human care. Wild animals are kept in separate enclosures. All is of course not true. Hence the answer is option number 1. Species is considered as the real basic unit of classification. Which of the following is not true for a species? The member of species can interbreed. This was the definition given by John Ray. Gene flow does not occur between population of a species. Well, gene flow occurs, and that is the reason they do interbreed. Each species is reproductively isolated from each other species. This is also true. Variation occur among the members of a species, also true. Hence, the only one that is false is option number 2. Key is used as a taxonomical aid for the identification of plant and animals. So, which of the following about key is correct? Just discuss. Couplet is a pair of contrasting characters, true. Key can be used for different taxons, true. Each statement in a key is termed as a lead, truth. Hence, all are correct. Identify the non-taxon rank. We have seen that there were 7 obligate categories, among which variety was not there. Hence, this is our answer. Which one is equivalent to phylum? Phylum is for the animals. The equivalent one is division for plants. The family of Homo sapiens is Hominidae. We have to select the correct sequence of taxonomic categories. As we can see, it is of course option number 2, because it follows the taxonomical hierarchy. The topic that we will start now is biological classification. As already discussed, the term classification means organization into categories, and these categories are scientifically known as taxa. Initially, Aristotle classified organisms for the first time into two-kingdom classification system, which included only plant and animalia. This was mainly based on gross morphology. But two-kingdom classification was not a proper system of classification, because it did not differentiate between the eukaryotes and prokaryotes. Heterotrophic fungi was also kept in plant kingdom, that was photosynthetic. Therefore, a 5 kingdom classification came into play given by R.H. Whitaker in the year 1969, whereas the kingdoms were classified as in Monera, which included the prokaryotes. Therefore, the sole members of kingdom Monera are the bacteria. Thereafter, there were the Protista, which included unicellular eukaryotes. After that, we have fungi, Plantae and Animalia. Whitaker used these following characters to classify the organisms. You have to keep in mind that these were not the characters, but the characters that were used for the classification were cell structure, body organization, mode of nutrition, reproduction and phylogenetic relationships. Hence, there are in total 5 characters used by Whitaker to give the 5 kingdom classification system. Now, in this system, animals are classified on the basis of these fundamental properties. We all know kingdom Monera includes only the prokaryotic organisms which have a cell wall which is made up of non-cellulosic, that is of polysaccharide or amino acid. The nuclear membrane here is absent. Therefore, they are prokaryotic organisms. Body organization is cellular, because we have seen in the last chapter that cellular organization was one of the defining properties of living. So, at least cellular organization must be present in all. But in higher forms, what do we see? Apart from cellular organization, we have loose tissue, then tissue or organ, and finally in kingdom Animalia, we have ranging from tissue to ultimately organ system. Mode of nutrition was a major determining factor in this 5 kingdom classification system. For kingdom Monera, it is often autotrophic, which includes chemosynthetic or photosynthetic. Heterotrophic mode of nutrition includes saprophytic and parasitic. Similarly, for each and every kingdom, the characteristics are defined here. Later on, to further classify organisms properly, 3-domain system was brought up by Carl Woese. It divided the existing kingdoms into 3 domains. There are Archaebacteria, which are also known as the primitive bacteria, bacteria which are the eubacteria, and then the eukaryotic organisms. Now let's start with the first kingdom, that is kingdom Monera. The sole members of this particular kingdom are kingdom Bacteria. Hence, kingdom Monera consists of all the prokaryotic organisms. This kingdom first appeared during the 4-kingdom classification system, where this was also referred to as Mycota. So come, let's meet the members of kingdom Monera. On the basis of their shape, they are categorized into the 4 categories, which are, you see, coccus is spherical in shape. Example includes Streptococcus pneumoniae. Bacillus are rod-shaped bacteria. They are usually the spore-forming ones, and most of them are found in soil. Example is Bacillus thuringiensis. Vibrio are comma-shaped. Very common example, Vibrio cholerae. And Spirulum, as the name suggests, Spirella. We have the example here. So this is the basic structure of a prokaryotic cell. First of all, let's start with the first one, that is capsule. Capsule, as we all know, is a part of the outermost covering. The outermost covering of the bacteria is the glycocalyx, which either exists in the form of capsule, which is rigid, or in a form of a slimy mass known as the slime layer. Now, this capsule is made up of gelatinous polysaccharide and polypeptide. It protects the bacteria from pathogen and drying up, that is desiccation, and it also helps in adhering to any surface. Same is the function of the slime layer. Thereafter, we have inclusion bodies. These are reserve of food deposits, which may be anything. They are, of course, non-living and crystalline. Thereafter, we have the bacterial cytoplasm. It contains 80% of water. Rest is occupied by protein, carbohydrate, lipid and organic ion. It is similar in composition to eukaryotic cytoplasm. Thereafter, we have a membrane. It is also phospholipid bilayer and contains protein. It also contains some sorts of respiratory enzymes because it's a prokaryotic cell and mitochondria are absent here. Mesosomes are special regions found in the plasma membrane which are basically the infoldings of the membrane. They serve as the respiratory organ because they are rich in respiratory enzymes. The important point that you have to note here is the name of mesosome in cyanobacteria is chromatophores. Thereafter we have 70S ribosome because it's prokaryotic. Next is the characteristic of bacteria, that is the peptidoglycan cell wall. As we all know, the peptidoglycan is made up of polymers of NAC and NAM. Thereafter we have certain adhering surface all over the bacteria. These are the fimbriae made up of a type of a protein known as pillin. Basically their function is motility and attachment. Thereafter we have the nucleoid, which is the genetic material in a bacteria. It exists in a supercoiled structure free in the cytoplasm. It is also known as genophore. Flagella, as we all know, they are locomotory organs and they consist of hook filament and the basal body, and it's made up of flagellin protein. Plasmids are small circular self-replicating extra chromosomal DNA which are not necessary for survival, but if present provides extra advantage, like for example our plasmid provides resistance against antibiotics. Now let's address certain questions. The phylogenetic system of classification was proposed by Engler. The two kingdom classification system was proposed by Linnaeus. Actually initially it was proposed by Aristotle, but then it gained scientific impact only during the era of Linnaeus. Five kingdom classification system was given in the year 1969. Most nutritional diversity is seen in kingdom Monera because bacteria are omnipresent and they can grow almost on anything. Now let us have a quick overview about the bacterial reproduction. Bacteria can reproduce by the following methods, that is vegetative. This kind of bacterial reproduction is accompanied by the formation of endospores mainly and also by exospores and cysts. Thereafter we have the asexual mode of reproduction, which includes mostly binary fission, that is the type of amitotic division, and for sexual reproduction it includes genetic transfer. This genetic transfer in bacteria can occur via three ways: transformation, conjugation and transduction. In transformation, one bacterium directly releases its genetic material onto the environment. Another bacterium of compatible mating type thereafter takes up this genetic material. Now the foreign genetic material replicates in the new bacterium, resulting in additional characteristics for the new bacterium. This is transformation discovered by Griffith. Thereafter we have conjugation, which occurs due to the help of sex pili. One cell is the donor, therefore F plus, and the recipient cell is known as the F minus. F factor is the F plasmid that is to be transferred from the donor to the recipient. There are two types of bacterial conjugation. One is the normal F plus to F minus, another one is HFR. First let us deal with the F plus and F minus. The F plasmid replicates both the host bacterium, joins with the help of a sex pili. Thereafter the transfer occurs. Once the F plasmid reaches the F minus host, the F minus host become F plus and the already F cell had it. Therefore at the end we have two F positive cells. This was the process of conjugation. For HFR, what happens? The F plasmids gets incorporated into the host genetic material. These kind of plasmids getting incorporated into the host genetic material are known as episome. Here basically the DNA is getting replicated and again the same process, transfer. So at the end we have one HFR and one F minus because before the replication of the bacterial cell the plasmid was transferred. The other process is the conjugation. Here we have a bacteria affecting virus. Therefore the name of this virus is bacteriophage because it affects bacteria. So basically what is affecting here is phage approaches the bacteria and with the help of the tail fiber it sits on the host bacterial cell. Thereafter, the DNA is injected into the host bacterium. Then, by hijacking the host replication machinery, the phage propagates and replicates its own DNA. After replication, phage produces its own protein. Thereafter, phage gets packed. This process is known as packaging, whereby new phage particles are produced into the bacterial cells. Thereafter, the phage usually lyses the host cell and comes out. This is the lytic cycle of a bacteriophage. Another such cycle is the lysogenic cycle, where the bacteriophage enters the host bacterium but does not replicate, rather it incorporates into the host DNA and stays there as an inert form. Incorporation of viral DNA into the host DNA is known as prophage. Remember the difference between episome and prophage. Bacterial plasmid is of course functional. It is not the main DNA because nucleoid is the main one, therefore it is extra chromosomal DNA. Hence our answer is option number 3. An exception to kingdom Monera is virus, because we will see that virus is not included under any kingdom in the 5 kingdom classification system, because viruses are inert outside the host body and only living inside the host body. This form of virus outside the host body is also known as virion. So we cannot classify them under living organisms, therefore viruses are the exception. Now, eubacteria could be classified into 2 types, that is gram positive and gram negative. Why is gram? Because based on a staining method known as gram staining, which is described here. Initially, bacteria are stained with a purple color dye known as crystal violet. So, all the bacteria will appear bluish purple. Thereafter, a mordant is used, that is usually potassium iodide. Washing with alcohol removes the stain from gram negative bacteria, but gram positive bacteria gets stained. Then a secondary staining is done on gram negative bacteria by using a red dye. Hence, the end result is gram negative bacteria will appear red and gram positive bacteria will appear purple or bluish. Now, the question is, why do this happens? Because of the difference between the cell wall composition between gram negative and gram positive bacteria. You see, first of all, the cytoplasmic membrane, that is the plasma membrane of both the bacteria, are roughly the same. Thereafter, between the cytoplasm and the cell wall, we have periplasmic space. Thereafter, we have peptidoglycan. The peptidoglycan layer in gram positive bacteria, you can see, is thicker as compared to that of gram negative bacteria. And gram negative bacteria contains a lot of lipoproteins and lipopolysaccharides. Hence, this is known as the LPS layer. The thing that is to be noted here is gram negative bacteria also contains porine. You all know that porins are basically channel proteins present in the membrane. Questions regarding this are: the composition of which of the following differentiates between gram positive and gram negative bacteria? Just now we have seen it's the cell wall. We have a gene in certain bacteria known as the NIFS gene, which is also known as nitrogen fixing gene, because from this gene we get an enzyme that is nitrogenase. It helps in nitrogen fixation. Out of all the options, rhizobium contains NIF gene. There are certain other type of organisms, like for example nostoc. A lot of nostoc cells comes together and one of the cell becomes specialized for fixing nitrogen. Hence it is known as heterocyst. Thereafter we have kingdom Protista. As already discussed, they include the boundaries of this particular kingdom is not well defined, because what could be a photosynthetic protist to one scientist, it could be a plant to other scientists. Like for example, we have Euglena or Chlamydomonas. So let's see that. Now let's see the divisions of kingdom Protista. Here are the different types of organisms included in kingdom Protista. First of all, you see some protistas are known as the photosynthetic protist. They include chrysophytes. Chrysophytes are mostly planktonic, that is, they do not have flagella. Examples include diatoms and desmids. Desmids are also known as golden algae. Read about the cell walls of diatom. They are made up of cellulose and are very important in certain purposes. Dinoflagellates are the organisms who contain flagella, hence their name. Flagella are 2 in number. One is transverse and another one is vertical. Thereafter, we have euglenoids. The habitat of euglenoids is usually drains and waters. Slime moths are found on rotting barks of trees. Hence, they are saprophytic protists. Slime moss during favorable condition forms an aggregate. This is known as Plasmodium. During the onset of adverse condition, from Plasmodium spores are produced, which are then dispersed by various mechanisms. Thereafter, we have the protozoan protists, also known as predator or parasitic protists. They are divided as follows. Amoeboid protists, their habitat is given. The important thing about them is they have pseudopodia. We have their example. Ciliated protozoans, as an example, we have Paramecium. The important thing here is it has a gullet as a food storage cavity. For flagellated protozoan, we have Trypanosoma, the causative organism for sleeping sickness. And for sporozoans, we always have Plasmodium, that is the malarial parasite. The demarcating feature about sporozoans is they have a spore-like stage in any stage of their life cycle. Now let's discuss certain questions regarding this. Reproduction of protists. It is bi-asexually, of course it is also bisexually, that is by the fusion of cells. Hence both 1 and 2 are correct. Desmids are included in just discussed chrysophytes. Slime moons, true walls are present only in the spore stage because that is the stage that needs production. Plasmodium stage is the aggregated mass of the slime moles. Trypanosoma is an example of flagellated protozoa. Gullet is present in Paramecium, that is ciliated protozoa. For this study of genetics, we have to understand Neurospora crassa is used. Neurospora crassa is a type of a fungus. So let us now focus on kingdom fungi. You see here is the classification of kingdom fungi. They are majorly classified on the basis of their reproductive behavior. Sexual reproduction is not known in a group of fungi, which is therefore known as fungi imperfecti or imperfect fungus. They come under Deuteriomycota or Deuteriomycetes. Sexual reproduction is known in certain group of fungi. They are further classified on their basis. First of all, if the mycelium, what is mycelium? Network of hyphae. What is hyphae? It is a fungal body. If the network of hyphae or the fungal body is aseptate, then they fall under Phycomycetes, also known as lower or algal fungi. Phycomycetes are also classified as Oomycetes, oogamous fungi or the fungi they reproduce by oogamy, and Zygomycetes or the conjugation fungi that reproduce by gametangial copulation. Thereafter, for sexually reproducing fungi where the mycelium is septate, they are known as Eumycota or higher fungi. They are divided into two categories, that is Ascomycetes and Basidiomycetes. For Ascomycetes, the spores are produced in a sac-like structure known as ascus, hence the name sac fungi. And for Basidiomycetes, we have basidiocarps, hence they are known as club fungi. Now let's deal with certain question. Albeugo is a parasitic fungus. First of all, we have to understand that Albeugo is a class of Phycomycetes. It is a parasitic fungus on mustard, resulting in the formation of a disease known as white rust. Never confuse it with wheat rust, which is caused by another type of fungi, Puccinia, which belongs to the group Ascomycetes. The other thing that you have to keep in mind here is, hence Ascomycetes and Basidiomycetes are higher fungi. They have an intervening dikaryon stage in their life cycle. Therefore, their life cycle is divided into three stages, that is haploid, dikaryotic phase and diploid life cycle. Genetic transfer through virus in bacteria, we have already seen, it is known as transduction. Here we have a virus known as the tobacco mosaic virus. You can see the genetic material here is ssRNA. It has capsid, that is the protein covering. Individual unit of the capsids are known as capsomeres. Thereafter we have a figure of bacteriophage. The different structures of bacteriophage are shown here. Tail fibers are meant for the purpose of attachment. Base plate pins are meant for the purpose of injecting holes into the membrane of the host so that the DNA can get infected. Rest, the entire body, especially the head, is known as the capsid, and individual units are the capsomeres here too. The causative agent of mad cow disease, it's a prion. Prions are proteinaceous infectious particles. So they contain only protein and they produce bovine spongiform encephalopathy or the mad cow disease. A virus containing ssRNA that acts as a template for DNA synthesis belongs to the family Retroviridae, hence they are known as the retrovirus family. Retro because the central dogma dictates the synthesis in this manner, that is DNA to RNA and then to protein. DNA is produced from RNA. This process is known as reverse transcription aided by the enzyme reverse transcriptase present in retrovirus family. The genome of tobacco mosaic virus we have just now discussed, it's the single-stranded RNA which is not found in Mycoplasma. Mycoplasma was a member of kingdom Monera that lacked cell wands, hence did not have a proper shape, hence we call this as pleomorphic. It is one of the smallest known organisms and the striking feature here is it can survive without oxygen. So what does it lack? Of course it lacks thylakoids, photosynthetic pigments, flagella and pili, hence the answer here is all of these. The number of capsomeres, that is the units of the capsid present in TMV is 2130. By the word staphylo, we mean a bunch-like arrangement. So staphylococcus are arranged in the form of a bunch. Binary fission means one bacterial cell divides into two equal halves. This process is accompanied by a septa formation. The formation of this septa is aided by the structure mesosome because they are plasma membrane invaginations. As we have already discussed about the bunch here, now let us discuss about the chain of rod-shaped bacteria. The chain is known as strepto, hence it is rod-shaped, therefore it would be bacillus. Go through all the topics discussed here and score 100% in your examination.